Today I'm going to be answering questions that you left in the comments section in regards to our nimblest SUV, the NX. The NX is becoming one of our best sellers and it has been for a number of years now, so it's about time we answer some very frequent asked questions about it. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you like this video and subscribe and give me some more questions in the comments section. So question number one is, are the seats more comfortable in the RX versus the NX? And I mean, there's probably a science behind it. However, I think it's a little bit subjective. I find the RX seats more comfortable, but that's strictly on the fact of they feel bigger to me and the bolsters don't seem as tight together. However, I have a lot of people, both my size, bigger, smaller, that find the NX to be a lot more comfortable. So it's a little bit subjective, but my personal opinion is the RX is more comfortable and just in general has a little bit more comfort in its vibe, I guess you could say. Hi Dustin, if I put premium gas in my NX hybrid, would I get better fuel economy? This question's been popping up a lot lately, so gas prices must be going up, but the answer is sort of or maybe. So theoretically, if you put premium gas in your NX hybrid, of course, then you should be able to get some better fuel economy, because on the NX hybrid, when they advertise the required gas or recommended gas, they say premium is recommended. So you can use regular, however, the fuel economy ratings that they have on the website is actually using premium, meaning if you use premium, you should be able to get those ratings. It doesn't mean if you use regular, you won't, but the car does tune a little bit to itself. However, the NX gas or the NX 350 non-hybrid, you have to use premium. So don't put regular gas in that one. That's bad, don't do that. Hi Dustin, I'm looking at both RX and NX. Which one should I go with? Oh, this is so tough. This question was actually asked to me on Instagram the other day. If you ever find me on Instagram, feel free to DM me and ask me these types of questions. So this one I always start with this. Did you drive both? If you drove both on a test drive, I'm gonna ask you, how did the interior of the NX feel? Did you feel claustrophobic or did you feel really connected? How did the RX feel? Did it feel too spacious or did it feel manageable enough that you could drive it every day? And then I start to ask, do you prefer a sporty handling ride or something that's kind of like driving a big soft couch? And that's when I come up with the answer. RX is really great for someone who has that mid-sized sedan drive in their head. Something that's a little bit cushiony, very luxurious, has that extra space in the rear. For me, I like to have a couple buddies in the back seat when I'm driving around. That means the RX is gonna be more comfortable for them. It's more of a luxurious back seat. Not to say that the NX doesn't still have plenty of space back there. However, it is definitely tighter and more like a sports car, more like a sports coupe. So when I was talking to this person the other day, they said they actually prefer the sports coupe or the more manageable size. So then they go for the NX. But just remember, R is for radiant, and in my opinion, that mid-size luxury, and N is for nimble, and that's what the NX is. Hopefully that helps. Does the NX or RX have window shades in the back? Yes, the RX does. No, the NX doesn't right now, but maybe that's coming in the future. That's how we saw it with the panel roof as well. It didn't come in the NX right away. Does anyone ever complain or regret buying an NX because of being too small? I haven't really heard that. I've never had someone trade in an NX saying I should have bought an RX. I even had a guest in the comment section the other day say that for her family, and she has a son that's 6 feet tall and a husband, they can go on road trips in the NX and never complain about space. Yes, they can't bring their bikes with them inside the car, but they don't do that anyway. So even a 6-foot son in the back seat, and I've been in the back seat and I'm 6'1", doesn't really complain about that. Now, if you had 3 people in the back seat, maybe they would complain. But I haven't had anybody regret buying the NX. Usually they really differentiate between the two, and same with packages. I never really have someone regret buying an F Sport over a luxury or vice versa. Usually the salesperson does a good enough job showing those two off early in the process so that you can go one way or the other and not sacrifice any features. Okay, so does the NX have the feature where you can roll down the windows with a key fob? Okay, so in Canada, it does have that feature, but it's turned off. So what you have to do is at your first 1,600 kilometer maintenance, you just ask for the dealership to turn on that feature. So when you press and hold unlock, it'll roll down those windows for you. And that should be a free feature to turn on. However, if you do it later down the road, you might have to pay like 50 bucks or something like that. but you can turn it on. You can't roll them up though. You can just unroll them. Okay, here's a great question. What did you find to be the biggest difference between the last generation NX and the latest redesign? Ooh, this is good. Okay, so I've driven both. I've had both as demos. There's gonna be a couple things here. Okay, so number one is the engine and powertrain. I find the new NX 350 to be so much punchier and just a little bit more torque and horsepower in a manageable space too, in a manageable area. And what I mean by that is getting on the highway, even going in the city light to light, on that turbo engine, it's just bigger, it's more power, it's just punchier. So that's number one. Number two is gonna be the tech. The tech is a huge difference from the previous model. In fact, it's been so long since I've been in a previous model, but the last time I was like, oh, I forgot we still have this little mouse pad here. And the NX always had a different mouse pad than any of the other cars. It was sort of like a trial and error thing. So the new technology in terms of the Lexus multimedia, but also things like Lexus Safety Sense has come a long way since then. So even if you're not a techie person and you're like, I'm just gonna use my Bluetooth or Spotify anyway, I promise you, you'll find yourself loving the new NX tech more and more as you get to use it. The first week, it's gonna be a little bit confusing. However, as you get more used to it, you're gonna find things like, the fact that the screen is bigger and clearer and crisper, or the radar cruise control is just a little bit more accurate, or things like proactive driving assist, where there's like a whole bubble around your car, and that can protect you from even fender benders and stuff like that. So I do think there's still gonna be purists out there that are gonna opt for the great deal on a pre-owned 2021 NX like I have on the lot right now. However, I'm seeing less and less of them for sale, and I'm seeing more people flock towards just going with a new NX for $50,000 or $60,000, because of if that safety tech kicks in one time and saves you from a fender bender, it'll pay for itself. And also getting you to your destination accurately with the new Lexus multimedia and having all of those tech features is also very useful and kind of an investment in itself. So that's my 2 cents there. If I had to pick a third thing, it's gonna be the door handles. I love the door handles. I talk about it all the time. Having that electronic door latch to get in and out is just luxury at its finest. And I do find the interior has a step up in materials too. People argue on that with me, but usually it's people who don't own the new NX. And the people that do say that it is a lot better inside. So that's that. What is the number one issue you see with people after they come back after picking up their new NX? So this one is super easy. The car itself, mechanically, I haven't seen any issues. I haven't seen any fit and finish issues in a very long time in this brand. And if there's one thing that people come back for, it's the tech. And it's not the tech not working usually. It's more or less on delivery day of your brand new Lexus, it's a big day. It's a climax of all of your research and saving up and picking a package and dealing with the salesperson in the dealership. It's the climax and the peak of that mountain. During that day, you're gonna be doing a lot of things like paperwork. You're gonna be sitting with the salesperson, setting up the Lexus app. You're gonna be in the car. You're just thinking, did I get all my stuff out of my last car? All of these things are happening. And because of that, even the most tech savvy people don't retain, or maybe the salesperson doesn't even go over all of the tech features that are in the car. And usually it's not the tech features failing anymore, where a couple years ago, perhaps it was Apple CarPlay not connecting and Android Auto not connecting all the time. Now those things are all ironed out, but it's the use of it. It's in getting into the rhythm of how to use it. And an example of that is, even just showing people how to get back into the radio when they're in the map. It's not like it used to be where you had both on a split screen anyway. So those little things is really all we see. Eventually, I think all dealerships are gonna have like a tech specialist. Most of them do already, where the tech specialist is gonna be there 24/7, not really, but all the business hours to be able to help people with these types of questions, because they're not really defects, they're not manufacturing defects or anything like that. It's mainly just needs a little bit extra coaching. And it's also one of those things where these systems are designed so that you use them every day and you get more used to them and you can get more into the advanced settings. Like even in any of our new cars that have that big Lexus multimedia display, Lexus interface, there's so many customized layers that if the salesperson goes through all of them on delivery, half of them are gonna be over your head or forgotten about just because there's so much to remember. So I always recommend doing a second delivery after picking up your new car, and maybe even a third, or maybe watch some videos online to learn those features slowly as you go and figure them out instead of, don't panic. There is a way to navigate it and you'll find your rhythm, because there's multiple ways to use the systems. So just getting into your own rhythm is a big part of it. Okay, here's a good one. What is the most popular color on the NX F Sport, and what is the most elegant? Ooh, I like this. So elegant, in my opinion, and people are gonna say that I might be wrong, is black. There's nothing more elegant to me than a black car, especially one with black accents like the NX F Sport. The black on that car is a caviar, which, by the way, is one of the most elegant sounding foods. So think about that. However, that caviar has a lot of depth to the paint too. So not only does the paint itself look like a well-fitted tuxedo, when you get up close to it, especially on a sunny day, you're gonna see a little bit of character and flair and detail as well. And there's nothing that says elegance rather than a black car. It does take some effort to keep that car clean. So do ceramic coating. We do that at the dealership here. A lot of people do that out in the community. Ceramic coating is a great way to be able to keep that looking shiny. The most popular though, I would say it's a tie between atomic silver or white. And when I was at the Lexus factory, almost every second Lexus off the assembly line was white because it's just very popular. On that F Sport, it is the ultra white. So it's like, there's not much pearl to it. It's just very bright white. And at nighttime, looks amazing because the whole car, it's not glow in the dark, but it almost looks it because you can still see all the details of the body, even at nighttime. In the daytime, the ultra white can be a little bright and it can wash out some of those details, but you have black accents. So it's got that whole panda look where it's like a two-tone. The atomic silver is a blend of both. So the atomic silver, even on a sunny day, you're gonna have a lot of body lines and you can still see some nice curvature. And also it hides the dirt really, really well. So you don't get followed on the atomic silver, you don't get water spots. It's the same color as water spots. And the best test for this is next time you see an atomic silver Lexus, if it's dirty, you'll see on the windows how much dirt is on them, like on the tinted windows. And then you'll look at the body and be like, oh, is it just the windows that are dirty? No, the whole car is dirty. It just doesn't look like that in the atomic silver. So those are the two most popular. However, the most elegant is definitely black. And you can quote me on that. And that is pretty much all I have. So continue to give me those questions. There's always some good ones there. I try to get to a lot of them myself by responding. And always the comments on the video help push the video a lot. But if you ever want a one-on-one, feel free to reach out to me directly. Today, I'm gonna go over questions from you, the audience, in our comments section, as we did this a little bit ago and it went very well and had some great feedback. So without further ado, let's get into some more comments. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe and leave us some more questions for me to answer. So the first question in the comment section is, can you start your Lexus with a dead key fob battery? So I've shown in other videos how to use the new electronic door handles and open them up even when the car is dead. And the same goes for if the key battery is dead. Now, to start the car is a different story. So if your key fob battery is dead, all you have to do is take your little key fob, hold it to that start and stop button for a few seconds, and then press the button and it'll pick up the transponder even if there's no battery in it at all. Is the white interior hard to keep clean? This is a tricky one because if you ask an owner of a white interior, they might say it's hard to keep clean, but they might also say, no, it's not that hard. You just have to be, careful. And all I know is I have a few friends that drive white interior Lexuses right now. One is an LC and one is an IS 350. And I checked on the IS 350 just the other day, shout out to Ozzy, and it was holding up very, very nicely. Now, he doesn't have kids in and out of the back seats or anything very often, but even where he sits in the driver's seat seemed to be in pristine condition. A few things you can do to prevent any type of staining is get interior protection. Most dealerships offer that. Always a great benefit by buying from a dealership is you have access to that. And even if you don't believe in the product itself, the chemical itself, which I do believe in, there's always a warranty backing it. And even in some of our other interiors, not just white, I've seen, stains from a brand new jacket and stuff like that. And usually with those types of protections, you just replace the armrest or replace the panel that sort of had the staining. So always a good idea if you're anxious at all about your interior, get that protection. It usually comes with a warranty. And as Moran would say, it's worth the light interior. It's worth that experience. So don't worry too much. You only live once and you can always protect yourself. So that's my spiel on white interiors. Okay, how do you find the drive of the IS compared to the NX? I find the 200 miles I've driven the NX to be too floaty, like I'm in a boat, and not very driver oriented, and noisy with the run flats. I'm guessing the IS would be heavier steering and more planted to the ground. Okay, great example. So yes, the IS and the NX are on a very similar platform. And the way I describe it is the IS is just lower. It's almost a little bit planted, where when you're turning a corner, you're gonna be a little more planted. And in the NX, you're standing tall and upright, so you might be a little tippy, even with the Sport package. Now, to answer the second part of that question, which is the heavier steering. No, I don't find the IS to have a heavier steering. I find them both to be very light and floaty. However, with the IS, that light and floaty steering just seems to have a little bit more of a reaction. So, long story short, they are very different driving experiences, mainly because of that lower, wider plant. I'm not a sports guy, but maybe that's like, that football stance, a little bit lower and wider to the ground. But the NX for an SUV is still relatively tight and not quite as floaty as something like the RX. I hope that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question. Dustin, are you single? It's complicated. Next one, I'm a larger framed person. Will the F-Sport seats feel tight on the RX? Okay, super complicated as well. So I've had guests of mine that are very large frames buy an RX F-Sport and be totally fine with it and have those bolsters still feel comfortable and not like it's digging into them. And I've also had guests of many shapes and sizes find those bolsters to be in the way or too tight on the circulation of their legs and back and stuff like that. So it really is preference. All I can say for this is take it for a drive, sit in the showroom for starters, and if it feels okay, take it for a drive. And I've had a couple guests buy an F-Sport, and this happened twice to me, buy the F-Sport and within a week of it, regret having it because of those bolsters. And both of those two times, it actually turned out that those two guests actually had a little bit of a vertebrae out, or a rear rib or something. They were actually injured and didn't realize it. So once they got their injury fixed, those F-Sport seats were fine again. So it also just depends on the condition your body is in and your posture and the way you're built and stuff like that. But most of the Lexuses these days, it's probably a close call, but I think I can say most of them are the F-Sport, and we don't hear that many complaints. So just keep that in mind. Dustin, what got you into Lexus in the first place? I can't believe I haven't talked about this on this channel, or maybe I have. It's an interesting story. So I went to school to be a mechanic, and I wasn't very good at it, but I could talk. And I still didn't know what I wanted to be, so I got a job at the Lexus manufacturing plant up in Cambridge. So when I was there, it was my first time with the brand. I've never driven a Lexus before that. I've never known anything about the brand. And I really fell in love with some of those values that make such a high craftsmanship type vehicle. Everything from how each assembly member can, reach up and stop the assembly line just to fix a bolt or get that production right and get a pat on the back for it, where it seems that other manufacturers that I've heard of, you would actually get in trouble for something like that. So I really fell in love with the story behind Lexus, the quality of the vehicles. I didn't stay there for too long because then I wanted to get into sales, and I started at Toyota and worked my way up to Lexus. But it really did help sort of create this fundamental foundation of Lexus running through my veins, and that you hear me sort of spewing out as I talk about the brand so much. Okay, so the ISF and IS 500 video, this was a question on there. So compare terms of performance. How fun are they to drive? Well, my friend, coming soon, you might see a video that deep dives into that a little bit. That's a little teaser for you. But in pretty much the most general terms, that IS 500 does feel very tight, and that ISF feels very rowdy. So the new technology in the suspension and the way that the manufacturing of the IS 500 went does create a very manageable car. And in my opinion, that ISF, Bilal's ISF, feels very raw and aggressive. So you'll see soon, coming soon, a little teaser there. Do any Lexuses have a cool box? Yeah, we have some cool boxes. We have some cool cars, we have some cool boxes. Particularly the GX and the LX, you can get certain packages with the cool box. Fun fact, we just learned the other day, that if you have a cool box on the new GX, you cannot actually turn off, if you have the cool box on, you can't fully turn off your AC. Even if you swipe it over to 0, the fan, it'll click onto 1, because that's what it's using to recirc the air in that cool box. I haven't used it personally. I used to call it the champagne cooler in the old LSs and stuff like that. On the new one, I haven't used it. It's a great idea. Put your lunch in there, put your drinks in there on a road trip. I think it's great. Is there a difference between the US models and Canadian models? Yes, and I haven't quite mastered every detail. However, the rule of thumb is usually in the United States market, you can look at those packages those features as being more a la carte. So if you want a certain feature, usually you can just pay extra, have that feature, have this feature. It's a large market, very easy to do for them. On the Canadian side, we have packages. And usually the rule of thumb for me on the packages is even if the package you're looking at, if there's 3 features that you like, it's worth the extra money to go for. So if I'm looking at the executive package on an RX and I really like the fact that it has the auto park feature, I really like the Mark Levinson sound system, and I really like, I don't know, maybe one of the other tech features. What you can say is that with those 3 features, it's gonna be worth that extra money because in the future, you're also gonna have a little bit extra resale value. So to my friends down in the States, make sure you're considering that as you're speccing out your Lexuses. Make sure you get the features you want and don't be afraid to get a couple extra in there. It doesn't hurt. And also in the States, it looks like you can get 2-wheel drive versions of a lot of our 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive models. So in Canada, we have all-wheel drive RXs and only all-wheel drive RXs. Down in the States, you can do front-wheel drive. And that sort of goes across the lineup. Is there any truth to the 2025 ES350 V6 being the last of the V6 in this model? And let me tell you, and this sort of hurts to say, I have no idea. It might be. I heard this rumor too. I've asked Lexus. They cannot confirm or deny it. I think there's a 50-50 chance here. The reason I say that is we are due for a full redesign on that ES. Definitely it's coming soon. And just looking at the way the market is going and the lineup is going, even though we love that V6, I do think they're gonna modernize it, probably put a Turbo 4, maybe a Turbo 4 with the hybrid, like we've seen in like the RX 500 and stuff like that. And if so, that would still be an amazing car, and I would not be disappointed at all to drive that. But if you are a fan of that V6, maybe you should just buy one now because I don't know how much longer you're gonna be able to get one. In today's video, I'm gonna be going over questions from you, the viewers, from our comment section. This is always one of my favorite videos to make because it changes every time I do it. And let me tell you, this time I got some doozies on here, so make sure you stick around to the end. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. So question 1, we're coming out hot, is Dustin, what do the tariffs mean to the price of Lexus in the coming months? And really the shortest answer I have for this is I have no idea. I hopped on a video call just a couple weeks ago with some industry leaders in the Canadian automotive sector, and it was about an hour long, and by the end of it I realized, oh, no one really knows for sure. But what I do know is in Canada, the RX and the NX are made here. So for Canadian prices, I don't know if those are gonna be affected. But again, we have the ES and the TX made in the States, and then everything else is pretty much made in Japan. So there's always moving parts and vehicles throughout borders. Even sometimes parts will move from Canada to the US and back a few times before the vehicle is actually built. So we don't actually know what's gonna happen. But what I do know is Lexus and Toyota is a very international company, and they have dealt with tariffs before outside of North America. So if there's any company that I would want to be affiliated with for weathering a storm, it would be this one. So I'm sure they have it under control. A little bit at least. Dustin, why should I buy a Lexus from you? I love this question because this is something that I always try to make sure my sales staff have an answer to, even if they're not asked it. I like for them to be able to convey to our guests why they should be purchasing a vehicle from them personally. And mine is this. So I used to work at the Lexus factory a long time ago, and I fell in love with the attention to detail Lexus had for manufacturing a perfect product or a near perfect product. And what I mean by that is every bolt gets checked like 9 or 10 times after it's been put in. And when I moved to the dealership level, I really fell in love with the fact that Lexus took that same passion and attention to the guest experience. And the reason why you should buy from me is I've been able to bridge both of those experiences to the experience that I want to give my Lexus guests. So if you haven't noticed, I'm super passionate about the product, and that comes out in my work of managing, in my work of selling, and even the maintaining relationships with our guests. So that is why you should buy from me. And I love that question, by the way. It might have been one of my staff that asked that, because they would know. Dustin, why do I hear Lexus are so easily stolen? Okay, I told you there's some doozies in here. And this is a big one to unpack, especially if you live in between Toronto and Montreal, especially. Essentially, here it is. Mathematically, it's not that Lexuses are just really easily stolen. This issue or this topic comes from the fact that overseas, in other countries, other provinces, other territories, other continents, a Lexus is sold for way more money than they are here in Canada. And in some of those countries, they don't even have like authorized Lexus retailers. So it's kind of a status thing too. Meaning, the RX behind me might sell for $70,000 here in Canada, but overseas it might sell for, almost $200,000. And depending where you live in the country, Canadian governments, Canadian officials are finding it pretty easy for those thieves and organized crime organizations to ship them out of this country without getting caught. So it creates like a little bit of a corridor for a targeted market, I guess you could say. And from what I've heard from police organizations is the people doing this is bigger than a company like Lexus or Toyota anyway. It's like a huge organization. There is that aspect to it. It's just the fact that there's like a demand overseas for them. Even though we love our vehicles and we get emotionally attached to them, they can be replaced. That is something for sure. So the best case scenario, if you are gonna have a vehicle stolen, I hope it happens in the middle of the night and that you don't have any valuables in it and that you can wake up, you can call your Lexus dealer, which if it's performance Lexus, we have a program called Etch, meaning you're probably gonna get money towards your next vehicle anyway, as long as it happens in a certain time frame. And we can always just replace it with a new vehicle. And most of the time, I find the insurance companies make it right in the eyes of the owner. So it's a tragic thing, there's no doubt about that. However, most of the time, the guest ends up well taken care of. And based on the specs that I've seen, 2024 had less thefts than 2023, and we're gonna go that direction because I do see the government, the police organizations, all this stuff sort of catching up. And I think this is just a time and place. I think it is gonna get better. So for whatever that's worth. Dustin, what Lexus would you buy right now? Okay, so right now I would buy an LC500, and not just because I have one in the showroom here, for a few reasons. One is with the way that the industry is going, I do think that the normal aspirated V8 probably has some time left. And what I mean by that is manufacturers, we even saw it with Mercedes, V8s are sort of becoming a thing of the past, and this is one of the last front-engine, rear-wheel drive, normally aspirated V8s in the market. And I also think that it's just gonna hold value because of that. I mean, I saw a 2018 LC500 for sale the other day for still like 80 grand or something like that. And I thought, well, brand new, a base model LC was only like $100,000 back then, or 110. And I was like, that depreciation doesn't really add up because they're still becoming very sought after. And I also think here's a car that has great attention to detail on things like the headlights and the body lines, but also the interior, super plush, super smooth to drive. I've always wanted a Porsche 911. I always said I wanted to save up and buy one as a kid, but now the LC500 is gonna be the top of my list because I think financially it also makes sense. And it's just such an elegant, classy car, especially in this ultrasonic blue 2.0 with the white interior behind me. So if I had to choose, it'd probably be this one right here. Over to another question. Dustin, how's the Lexus market right now in every model? Well, that's such a hard question to answer because we have so many models. So I'm not gonna go through all of them, but I will tell you a few things. So interesting enough, this year already in 2025, I'm noticing people are asking about the Lexus IS a lot right now. I have probably 7 or 8 on order that are sold. I have a few coming in. It seems like every day there's someone asking about it and I can't seem to keep them here. So that's interesting because again, market-wise, sedans and cars are sort of on a decline across, not the luxury market per se, but like the whole industry as a whole. And that's why we see brands like Chrysler stopped producing sedans. I think some of the GM dealerships have stopped producing sedans as well. And from what I could tell, IS is hot. NX and RX always do well. Those are like our bread, butter, and gravy cars. So we're seeing that. The hybrid versus gas kind of comes and goes. So most of the time we are selling more hybrid, especially in the NX right now, I find. But depending on the buyer, sometimes hybrid doesn't always make sense. TX is another one I can't seem to keep here because a lot of families are finding that having a 3-row SUV with extra space in the back and the fact that you can sit in the 3rd row even as an adult is really important. So the TX has been punching above its weight for that market, especially if you're a family that doesn't want a minivan, but you need the space of a minivan. At a price sub $100,000, the TX seems to check a lot of boxes there. ES, I have a lot of people inquiring. I just don't have any here, so I don't have a good take on that. And then, I mean, the pre-owned Lexus market is always pretty strong. I'm finding I can't keep many F Sports here in the pre-owned world because those are getting taken up pretty quick. I'm finding RXs, it doesn't matter condition or kilometers, are always selling well, even the old body style. So pretty strong there. Interest rates are coming down a little bit, so I think that's driving a little bit of that bus. So overall, both are doing really well. New and used SUVs always kind of like win that game, but the fact that IS is doing so well is also a good sign. Dustin, hey, this goes well with what I just said. So Dustin, should I buy a hybrid RX or a gas RX? Is it worth the extra cost? So this is a great question because if you look at it mathematically, yes, the RX hybrid is going to save you money on gas. Depending on how much driving you do a year, that might pay for itself in the course of that lease for sure. I mean, usually you're a couple $1,000s more. However, you can put regular gas in the hybrid. I'm driving a hybrid NX right now. I notice I stop at the gas station a whole lot less, but also hybrids have another benefit of the way they drive in it. That's if you're into that. And what I mean by that is in the city, it's gonna be a really smooth acceleration, especially from a stoplight because that hybrid motor is kicked in. However, with that said, that turbocharged 4-cylinder that the RX has with a true transmission, like a true geared transmission, does have a different driving experience. It's got a lot of good torque. You can feel the transmission shifting. The driving experience kind of changes. And I always say to people too, if you prefer internal combustion engines, like the non-hybrid stuff, this might be your last chance at buying one. I know I said that last year as well, and a lot of people are happy that they got it because eventually we are all going to go hybrid, I am sure of it. So while you still can, I always say it's not a bad idea to get those RX gas. And what I'm seeing in the used car market is both of them are holding value because they're quote unquote, there's a butt for every seat. Meaning, you know, people want that last internal combustion engine and people know that the hybrids do well reliability-wise too because they're never really working too hard. So both are a good choice financially. I would say, I would just ask yourself what matters most to you. Is it, you know, that smooth driving experience and not going to the gas station? And do you drive enough to make it worthwhile? Because another thing that we're finding is hybrids don't like to sit very long. So if you only drive, you know, 10,000 kilometers or 5,000 miles a year, whatever the conversion is, the hybrid won't pay for itself. And actually it's gonna wanna be driven. So you wanna make sure that that battery doesn't die. The 12-volt battery, not the big one. So anyway, hope that makes sense and it didn't sound like a cop-out. Okay, did Lexus announce anything new at the auto show this year? Yeah, so we definitely had a really exciting exhibit at the Toronto Auto Show this year. I spent a full day there. Really the most exciting thing that was new was going to be that LX. So the LX hybrid was there for the first time, the LX 700H. And that vehicle really did surprise me because, listen, I got the brochure when it got launched. I saw some videos. I thought, okay, a hybrid LX is here. Super cool, we only saw a few of them anyway, but whatever. Then I got to see it in person and touch and feel and have Michael from Lexus go through it with me. And I was like, oh, this is a whole new beast of an LX because of those off-road gear, because of the different locking transaxles and things like that. It really is a crazy off-road beast that would be great for overlanding or camping or anything like that. And it's funny because at the price point, you'd think probably none of the buyers are gonna do that, but maybe they will. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Dustin, oh, I knew this question was gonna happen because I did a terrible job explaining this in another video. Dustin, do you need 2 sets of jumper cables to boost a hybrid? Okay, so I did do a video on how to boost a hybrid, and the way I did it, which is like the safest way, and it is a couple extra steps, I did hook up booster cables under the hood so that I could pop the trunk on an NX hybrid or an RX hybrid, because that battery is in the trunk. And what I didn't do a good job of explaining that you just need 1 set of cables. So what you do is hook it up to the front, and then once you open the trunk, take it off, go to the battery itself and boost it there. I know a lot of people in the comments are like, you don't need to do it that way. You definitely don't need to do it that way. However, at the dealership here, I have fried a number of modules, not just myself, but my staff as well. And we're pretty experienced in it. Just because of the grounding under that hood can be confusing. You can accidentally ground really close to a computer module very quickly and without even thinking about it. So I don't use 2 sets of cables, but my favorite method is to go under the hood, hook it up to the post that's under there just to pop the trunk, unhook it, that trunk is already popped, then you can go back there and hook it up to the battery itself. So just 1 set of cables will do the trick. Everybody's been sliding into the comment section with some more question and answers. So in today's video, we're gonna do some more Q&A. So first one is, should I get an RX gas or an RX hybrid? I always like to call the RX turbo instead of, fossil fuels, but I get what you're saying. And this is a great question. It comes down to a few different things. One is, how long are you gonna keep the car? And how much driving do you do? Because if it's just about budget in terms of like saving fuel money, the difference between the two, in Canada at least, the hybrid is about $2,500 more, and the gas is obviously $2,500 cheaper. And the fuel economy on the website that I checked, fueleconomy.gov, which does a really good calculation of the two, says you'll save about $918 a year going to the hybrid. And that's on an average 20,000 kilometer driving. So with that said, it would take a couple years to pay off itself. And I guess in turn, the resale value might be a little bit higher on the hybrid. So if you're gonna keep it for more than 2 years, it might make sense if you do a lot of driving. However, you are gonna be limited to package. So right now on the RX 350h, you can't get any of the F-Sport packages, which are my favorite packages in the lineup. So if I wanted an F-Sport Series 2, I would have to do the F-Performance RX 500h, which you wouldn't really go there for fuel economy savings, but you would get like the sporty styling. So I would probably weigh those 2 options in terms of like, are you okay with a luxury package or do you want a sport package? And take that in consideration when you're looking at the 2. Now there is one more benefit to going hybrid, and I'm driving an RX hybrid right now and I forgot about it. And that is, it is so smooth. It's smoother than my intro. And that's just because of that hybrid engine motor is kicking in, and from a stop, it's just like you're gliding. You're just flying. So that is definitely something to consider when looking at a hybrid. Okay, question number 2. Why is the LC500 not marketed? That's a good question. I don't know for sure because I don't work for the marketing division of Lexus. But all I know is when you look at certain niche cars, it's not about getting as many of them on the road. It's about when you see them on the road, you're like, whoa, that's an LC500. It's not your everyday volume, even volume enthusiast car. It's something a little bit more special to that. And when I look at countrywide, even a year and a half ago, there was like 15 LC500s for sale used. As of today, I think if I go all the years, like 2019 all the way up to 2024, there's like 5 for sale. And I think 2019 to 2020, there's none. 2021, there's none. So there's a really high demand for them, especially with that V8. And there's a relatively low supply. And because of that, it keeps those pre-owned ones really highly priced. And I don't know, it just makes it a little more niche and special, which is part of the fun of having an LC, especially if you have a bespoke one. Shout out to you guys with the bespoke ones. Are there any window shades on the RX or NX? There is. So on the RX, usually like the mid-luxury packages and up, so luxury, ultra-luxury, and executive, you do have rear seat window shades that come up and down. On the NX, I'm sorry, but you don't. But on the RX you do, so maybe that's one reason to go RX. Do you have to plug in a hybrid, or what does hybrid mean? Okay, so this is a good question. So if it's a plug-in hybrid, you plug it in. But if it's just a regular hybrid, we've sort of started calling them self-charging hybrids. You're just gonna put the gas in like you normally would a normal internal combustion engine. And that gas is just gonna last a lot longer, like 800 to 1,000 kilometers a tank sometimes. And a car that would normally do like 600 to a tank or something like that. So if it's a self-charging hybrid, you're just gonna put gas in. If it's a plug-in hybrid, which is like the NX 450h Plus or the RX 450h Plus, those cars are a little bit more rare and, you know, harder to get a lot of the times. That's more of like an EV where you plug it in every night, it's gonna give you some range. Maybe it's like 50 kilometers, 80 kilometers is not a ton, but it gives you a little bit more of that EV powertrain. And then when it goes out, when you run out of juice, when your range anxiety kicks in, it's just a hybrid. You can just put gas in it. So the plug-in hybrids are best of both worlds. And just remember, the term hybrid has evolved many, many moons and times. So like in 2011, Chevy had a Malibu that was said it was a hybrid, but really it just had start-stop technology. And it would just be like, the idle would stop when you're at a light. So it does keep changing. Right now, think of self-charging hybrids is the normal hybrids we talk about, and then there's also the plug-in hybrids. And of course, there's full EV, but that's a whole other topic right now. Okay, does the new RX have navigation? Great question. It does, but it's cloud-based navigation. So it used to be that if you were looking at an RX or an NX or whatever, any package mid-level and up, a big selling feature was the fact that it had navigation. And with the introduction of Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to our lineup, we realized that is less important. However, if you have, you know, some of those mid to high packages, you can get cloud-based navigation. And that's part of your 3-year connected services trial. And it uses Google Maps and Google Traffic and POIs and all that stuff to be sort of like a live map, but you do need that service initiated. You do have to have, you know, the cloud-based thing going. But most of my guests use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, including myself. I find the Google Maps or the Waze app or any of even the Apple Maps is just really cool. It's really sharp. I can change it on the fly. It just works so flawlessly. So I'd recommend if your car has it, use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's the best. Okay, how long? There's a lot of hybrid questions today. How long does a hybrid battery last? Great question. I think this means like longevity of it. So I'm gonna go with that. So a hybrid battery has a 10-year, 240,000 kilometer warranty. That's on the high voltage hybrid battery. The reason Lexus can stand behind that without losing a bunch of money is because their experience from the last 20 years of making hybrids has taught them that they last. And one of the reasons they last a long time is because they're never like getting to 100% charge. Like even when the car says it's 100% charge, that battery is actually at like 80 capacity or 70. And then, you know, even depleted, it's still going down to like 20. So you're really playing in that mid zone. And because of that, the batteries last a long time and they're really over-engineered. This dealership, Performance Lexus, has been selling hybrids since like early 2000s, maybe late 90s, something like that. And from the staff that's been here, even the ones that have been here for 20 or 30 years, they said that they've only replaced like 3 under warranty or something like that. And what I mean by that is one was like sitting in the Florida sun for many, many hours and it didn't like the heat. So it was like on fluke failed. Another one I think was like part of a car accident. And I think the third one was like, I don't know, maybe just another fluke thing. And that's with like 30,000 vehicles coming through here in the course of that time. So super, super rare. I'm not saying it's never gonna happen to anybody. Who knows? But it just gives you an idea that these batteries are super reliable. They have a big warranty even if not. And you shouldn't be worried about that because yeah, I think they're probably even more reliable than like an internal combustion engine. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease. That's all the questions this time. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of those. If you have any more questions, I love seeing the discussions that we have in the comment section. And you know, even if it's something I can't answer, I'll try to at least keep an eye on those comments, maybe do some replies when I can. I think even the last 3 to 4 days, we had like maybe like 40 comments. So even as I'm scrolling and trying to get through some, I do try to look at them. And if I see a question, sometimes I'm like, oh, that'll be a great one. I'll write it down for the next Q&A video. And I really like that I'm seeing so many of our subscribers in that comment section. If I keep getting them, I'll make sure I give you guys a shout out, the ones that I see all the time. And of course, if you're ever in the area, feel free to pop in and say hi. That's another favorite thing I have about making this YouTube channel is a couple times a week, I have people sort of just like knock on my office door and say, hey, I just want to let you know, I see your videos and that's why I'm here buying a car. Or even it's like some of our previous guests that'll just come by and say, hi, hey Dustin, hope all is well. I see your videos every Saturday type thing. And it's one of my favorite things. Maybe I'll get some like swag that I can give people when they see me on YouTube and they come in and say something because it does really give me motivation to keep making these videos. The RX 350 is our best seller and has been for a number of years. So, of course, I get asked a lot of questions about it. And since I've been doing these question and answer videos, it seems like the viewers, you guys, have been liking them and adding more and more questions. So, without further ado, let's get into some Lexus related questions. In no particular order, but I did save a very interesting question for the end. Let's get into it. So, why did the RX get rid of the V6? I get asked this question all the time. Yes, the V6 was loved for many, many years. Almost too many years. Because it was so reliable and had so much power, Lexus and Toyota used that engine in so many different platforms. Everything from the Sienna to different variants of some of our sedans. And as time goes on, we see the market and the industry going to smaller and smaller, more fuel-efficient engines with things like turbochargers. And for the RX, it was just time. Lexus knew it was time to redesign the whole platform itself, so why not base it off of a different powertrain? A turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, this 4-cylinder does sit lower to the ground and have less weight, so the handling and things like that are increased. And what I found was, since Lexus is one of the only manufacturers that produce those turbos in-house instead of subletting them to someone like Garrett or Mitsubishi or some of the other brands do, they still are able to hold on to that reliability a little bit. But only time will tell, let's be honest. So that's why they got rid of the V6. Why does the RX 350h say premium gas is recommended, but you said in one of your videos that it's not? Very tricky question. So yes, the RX 350h does technically have specs online with recommended premium gas. Recommended premium gas. I almost tripped up saying that. However, the only reason it's recommended in that spec is that means Lexus used premium gas to actually measure the fuel economy of the car. Whenever you see that premium gas is required, like on some of the other Lexus vehicles, that means in terms to be able to create longevity of that engine and produce the power that they're saying, you have to do premium gas. But the RX 350, you can definitely do regular. I've heard that right from Lexus's mouth. That's what you can do. Dustin, if you could change anything about the RX, what would it be? Okay, there's two things I would change. One is I would add massaging seats to those front seats. I know it's a mid-size SUV and it's a really affordable price point, but that's such a next level feature. And the RX is already so luxurious that to me, it seems like a full-size luxury SUV, like the way it drives. And I think having massaging seats would just level it up. I mean, we see it in some of the other competitors in the same segment, so why not? Especially because the new GX massaging seats are super, super nice, and I think that they could be on that. The other thing I would change, and I'm gonna get some hate for this for sure, is I would put a twin turbo V6 under here, like the GX 550 engine, or like what we see in the LS. I would put that under this, and I think even though it would be a lot heavier and it'd be front heavy, I think it would be super cool to have a very high horsepower RX. Kind of like what we see with like the BMW X5M or something like that. So those are the two things I would change. Dustin, when will the RX 350 be redesigned again? Well, we only saw this come out like in 2023. So I would say it will be at least close to 5 years from then. So maybe, I don't know, 2028, 2027, something like that. I know definitely 2025, there isn't really gonna be much of a change. So probably still a few years away. Maybe they'll see some tweaks to colors and stuff, but for the most part, we're still a long ways away. Dustin, what is your favorite interior of the RX? Funny question, because my mind changes all the time on this topic. That's one of the bad things, one of the only few bad things about working at a dealership is I always see the shiny new thing and I want it. So for the RX, my new shiny new thing is the Palomino interior, or any light interior really. And it all started with the LCD spoke. But having something like a Palomino interior with like a white exterior, a black exterior, or even a Nightfall mica exterior, I find it just creates this really classy driving experience where you can really appreciate some of those finer details in the interior. Most of my cars that I own have black interior and I like the versatility of that, but I find I don't get to see all the little details. So long story short, Palomino would probably be my new favorite for the RX. Okay, Dustin, is the RX 500h worth it? It seems like it's a big jump in price. Yes, the RX 500h is a jump in price. It's almost tailored to a market that's different than the RX 350. But in my opinion, yes, it's worth the price. The whole driving experience is different. It doesn't feel like an RX 350. You have a lot more weight and a lot more power, and overall, just the way the suspension is tuned and everything like that, it's a get up and go truck. And I say truck because the RX 500 to me, when you drive it, feels more like a truck or a high performance SUV than the cushy RX 350. So if it's caught your eye, you've probably already done the math and you're probably trying to justify it, you should just buy it. You should just justify it. It's one of those things where life's too short to drive boring cars, and the RX 500h is definitely far from boring. Dustin, which is the most popular package for RX? Well, right now, let's just start with this. The RX has so many different variants. We have the RX 350, we have the RX 350h, and then the RX 500. In the RX 350 alone, there's like 7 different packages. On the 350h, there's like, still 4 or 5. And then the 500, there's 2. So there's a lot to choose from. I would say if we're just thinking of the RX 350, and that gives you like, all the S-Sports and all the premium luxury, ultra luxury, executive stuff like that, I would say the most popular are these two. Luxury, because it's priced well in the middle. You're still getting a lot of features for a really affordable price, and you're not really paying for anything that you're not going to use, with the exception of the sunroof. I get that not everybody's going to use the sunroof. Also, F-Sport Series 2. Now that's pretty much in line with the luxury. It always has been, and except for you're getting a little bit more of that styling. So those F-Sport wheels, that F-Sport grille, those F-Sport seats. So those two always just come down to preference, whether you like the sport or the luxury. But in terms of actual like bang for buck, those are both great places to start. Now, with that said, I always tell my guests, if you want or feel like you're missing out on 2 or 3 features in that next package up, it's probably worthwhile to go up in package, because we all know when you go to sell it or trade it in, having a higher package does retain some extra value, especially in terms of future proofing. Why does the RX 350 have premium gas required? So really similar to the question earlier, but a little different. So in this question, we're thinking about the turbocharged RX 350. The reason it needs premium and is required and not recommended is because of that turbo, or this is what I'm told at least. And the premium gas is going to help keep things clean, I've heard. So things like carbon buildup, those injectors, even just the fact that the engine is working harder and burning hotter because of the turbocharger. So we really want to focus on longevity, and that's the way it's tuned, so we got to do it. Okay, Dustin, my RX beeps several times when I lock it. Why is this? And I should have given you a shout out in the comment section, but I didn't write down your name. But very great question. The reason it's beeping at you, the first thing I would check is there anything sitting on your rear seats? Because there is a feature, I think it's like, I don't know what it is, but it's like, did I forget my kid in the car feature? I can't remember the name of it. And what it is when you lock your car and you're going away from it, if you have something on those rear seats, the car's just telling you, hey, you forgot something on your rear seats, or maybe someone, or maybe your dog, your kid, or whatever. So it did happen to me a number of times, and every time I lock an RX now, and I hear that, I'm like, oh, something on the rear seat. So that could be why. Okay, here is the long question, and I'm gonna do my best to try and answer this. Here's a straight question that requires a truthful answer. I'm a Lexus guy for the last 24 years. I hear a lot of horror stories here in the US regarding RXs being made in Cambridge, Canada. Knowing that the RX is made in Canada only, and also knowing about the Takumi tradition, shout out to you for knowing what Takumi is, available only in the Tahara factory, which is in Japan. All of my Lexuses have been made in Japan. Why would I buy anything else Lexus brand that's not made in Japan, is what this person is saying. This is awesome. I love this question very, very much, and I'm super passionate about it. For one, amazing that you pay attention to things like Takumi and the Lexus brand values that all originated in Japan. I do have a little bit of experience with this because I worked at that Cambridge factory here in Canada, and maybe that makes me a little bit biased, I don't know. All we know for sure is those Japanese plants for Lexus and Toyota over in Japan, they became so famously attentive to detail for a number of reasons. One of them is the production system itself, the Toyota Way. If you haven't read that book, it's an awesome book. There's some great videos on YouTube about it as well. And the Toyota Way talks about perfecting that production system, and that has been used in so many different industries around the world, hospitals, schools, everything. And because of it's a process driven, there's all these little things like Kaizen and continuous improvement and all those other things. And that really helped the quality in Japan. But also the people in Japan are absolutely one of a kind. Here are some of the hardest working individuals on this planet. Some of them don't even take a sick day for 30 years and live to work. And because of that, we've created these amazing products out of them. They take such pride in their work. So that is going for Japan. I absolutely get that. Here in Canada, it is a different culture, absolutely. However, us Canadians are still proud. We're still proud people and we're proud of what we do. And what I found at the Lexus plant was those engineers and those ASMs and those managers did a great job of instilling those processes of production into us on the assembly line. And what I mean by that is the spirit of Kaizen, the way that you would really check every bolt 10 times before the end of the assembly line. And what I mean by that is literally if someone that was like 4 or 5 processes ahead of me put a bolt in, chances are the next number of people or processes are checking that bolt to make sure that it's tight, or checking that connection, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this stemmed from what we saw in Japan with some of those Japanese built vehicles. And because of that, we have our Cambridge plant, which now also the NX is made in. And that Cambridge plant has won countless platinum awards and gold awards from JD Power and all these other companies. And when you go there, it's in the culture. Like the people that maybe have worked at some of the domestic brands and now work at that factory will tell you it is a different vibe here. So yes, Japan is next level when it comes to quality. That Cambridge plant with the RX and now the NX is still next level as well, especially versus anything else that we've seen out of North America. So what I'm saying is don't discount it and don't compare it to anything else in North America in terms of production, and think of it as the little sibling to those Japanese factories that have been perfected over decades and decades. So I hope that helps. I'm Justin Mason from Performance Lexus. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for the comments. I know it's the same number of people that are watching these videos, and I love that. And I always will try to read the comments and definitely respond when I can. So I'm Justin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines, and today I'm gonna do one of my favorite videos, and I know it's probably one of your favorite videos because I always get so many comments and engagement. It's a question and answer video. And today I'm gonna be reading off of a Post-it note because not all of the questions come from our YouTube channel, but also my Instagram page. So make sure you look me up on Instagram, send me a DM. I do try to read and respond to those. It's just the Dustin Mason, and you can find me there. Okay, so we'll start with Dustin. What is your favorite Lexus that's come to the dealership? Well, this is tricky. I have like 2 that I've narrowed it down to. Obviously, if we ever had an LFA here, that would be my favorite Lexus. However, a good friend of mine and good client of mine, let's call him Joseph, did order for me a GSF a number of years ago. That was a really cool car. The exterior was blue with a white interior from what I remember. And it was my first time being with the GSF. The GS350 was a car that I started with the brand, and I instantly fell in love of the craftsmanship and the ride and all the things that car brought to life. And the GSF was such a step up from that. Here's a mid-sized saloon with a V8 rear-wheel drive and super rare, and I think it's so cool. If we ever get one traded in, I hope I'm financially ready because I'll want to buy it for sure. My second choice would probably be, I really love the LS. It's again a very hidden gem of a car, but it's such a flagship in the lineup And there's just something about a high-end sedan that I just absolutely love. So my other one would be the LS. Dustin, what is your next demo going to be? Well, right now I'm driving an RX 350h and I'm gonna hold on to that for as long as possible. But with the 2024s coming out or phasing out and the 25s coming, I know I'm gonna have to sell it soon. So I'm really hoping I can convince my boss to let me get an RX 500h as my next demo, because now that I really like the hybrid aspect of the car, having that performance aspect, I think it'd be great, especially for the winter months. So Mark Lovelock, if you are watching this video, let me have an RX 500h. Maybe we'll do like a poll and everybody can vote for it. But that would be my next demo if I could choose. Dustin, how does the intelligent high beam work? So this is a question I actually got through email the other day, and I was going back and forth with a guest, and it was funny because I learned something about this. And it used to be in many Lexus vehicles, that little signal switch to the left of your steering wheel that you turn your high beams on and stuff like that, it used to be that to have your automatic high beams on, you have to have it pushed away from you. So it was in like the high beam setting, and then you'd press a button and it would like turn off the high beams. Well, now it's actually the opposite. So you're gonna have that sort of towards you or just in the middle, and then the button on the side will have the auto. Now, if you're in a dark enough area and your high beams are on, that blue symbol will be on if your high beams are on. However, if there's a car coming towards you and your high beams switch off, that'll go out. Now, if you have the triple beam LED intelligent high beam assist, that blue light will stay on because your high beams are still on, and it's just fading out one of those bulbs that, that obstacle or pedestrian or whatever is in. So it's a little bit complicated, but I promise you it's all for safety and to make sure we have a nice, bright, and enjoyable drive. Okay, Dustin, what is some book recommendations for someone getting into car sales? You're probably gonna think that I'm going to say, some very car sales specific books, and there's no shortage of that. There's lots of companies that do that. They have some great aspects to it. However, my favorite books for car sales or anybody getting into car sales, probably number one is gonna be Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is a book that if you talk to anybody that's really made a name for themselves in the car industry, especially with a luxury brand like Lexus, they either have read it, read it every year, or even go as far as keep it in their desk drawer. I keep it in my desk drawer, but I recently gave it away to this kid named Jack over the summer because he needed to read it. That book, it's really old school. It was written a long time ago. However, some of those lessons are just great refreshers for us. And it all comes down to what I call communication or emotional intelligence. And it's great for leadership and it's great for sales because it'll teach something like you can catch more bees with honey, which is like a really funny old school saying. What that means is if you're nice to people, you can get more of what you want instead of being sour all the time. And it also teaches you that the most important word in the English language is actually your name. So make sure you use other people's names. There's many lessons in that book. It's a very light read. I keep it in my office, like I said, and sometimes I'll just skim through it. If I need a little pick-me-up, if I'm doing something leadership-wise or dealing with maybe a really difficult guest, I will always read that, and it's good for both sales and management. So if you get into sales and you want to move into management, it's some great skills to have. The other book that I would recommend, there is so many. One of the ones that comes to mind is Psycho-Cybernetics. This was a book that when I was on the sales floor at Toyota back in the day, a guest came in and he recommended me a couple books. This was one of them. And from what I remember, it's a couple years ago, it really helped me visualize my goals and understand that, how the brain works with getting you to your goals, whether you believe in that stuff or not, but it worked for me. And sort of the best way I could describe it is, they say that like your goal-striving mechanism in your brain is kind of like a heat-seeking missile. Well, once you define what it is, it'll constantly work towards it. And it kind of is like, when you do multiple choice tests and in school, your teacher would always say, hey, if you don't know the answer to number 3, just move on to number 4 and 5 and 6, and your brain will continuously work on it. And that's what it is. It's your subconscious working on that problem, even when you aren't. And they say that that's the same with getting to your goals. So really making sure you have a definition of your goal. Maybe that's to sell 8 cars, maybe it's to call 10 people, maybe it's just, to make someone happy today. Your brain will find a reason to get there. It's kind of like the red car theory, where if I asked you today how many red cars you saw on your way to work, you might say none, but on your way home tonight, you're gonna see like 30 because now you're looking for them. So it has something to do with that. I think that book was also the same one that talks a little bit about self-image and how to portray yourself as the person you wanna be. So it's probably more of a self-help book, and some of you might be like, oh, I don't know if that's gonna get me to sell more cars. Anything emotional intelligence or communication intelligence, to me, is a big reason why I became successful at such a young age. So take that for what it's worth. Dustin, can you give us a tour of that showroom that you're always filming in? Yes, I can, but I am going to preface this a little bit. We are bursting at the seams in this building right now, and pretty soon we'll be unveiling our new Lexus dealership. But until then, we've really taken up as much space as you can. So as you can see behind me, we have our Lexus showroom that holds 4 or 5 Lexus vehicles. However, it used to hold more until we started to grow our team to the 7 salespeople that we have now. Those 7 desks are sort of spread out, and if you come with me, I'll show you. Along this entire glass wall, we have Jason in the corner, Michael next to him, Aaron, Ian, Mo, Bilal, and Steven all along this wall. And because we've been growing so quickly and reshaping all of these offices, some of the workspaces are more crammed than others, and some of them have a coat rack where others have a little glass case to be able to hide all of our Lexus gifts. Also, a couple salespeople do have fridges in their office. They told me it was for guest drinks, but really I think they just wanted their own Perrier and Gatorade for all of those long days calling customers to come buy cars. So that's where the Lexus sales team sits. Over back to the entrance over here, we have 2 entrances to the showroom. This one here is what we call our service entrance. That's why sometimes there's some tires. It's a very high traffic area, and it's really hard to keep clean, especially this time of the year with all the leaves. So again, this team has grown a little bit too. So we have a little bit of a part-time service desk here for Ursula, who's really close to retiring, but has held on, and she's here half a days. Then we have Shirag and Paula, our service advisors here. This is really the most high traffic area. And by the way, there's a lot of people that sit upstairs that are also calling and booking guests in for service appointments. We have our fearless service manager, Maurizio, over in that back corner so he can keep an eye on everything service related. And then in this office here, where there's always some treats, and there was a little dish of candy the other day, that's where Lori sits with her trusty sidekick, Dylan, and they help us with a lot of internal stuff. But if we keep going this way, there is some more things to go over. This is our Lexus lounge, and again, we have a brand new dealership coming very soon. However, right now, this is where guests will sort of relax, drink coffee, make tea while waiting for their Lexus to be serviced. Since we have a free loaner program and valet service, we don't get a lot of guests waiting here, but sometimes for a small service, maybe they will. However, we have a fleet of like 12 Lexus loaners, so a lot of times when guests come in for service, they'll just take one of the loaners for free, drive around, do some errands. It's usually a brand new Lexus. And even if we run out of Lexuses, we have some rental cars here too, so it sort of mixes up that. We have this brand new coffee machine. I'm a big coffee guy, and this one does fresh ground coffees, or coffee beans. So I drink a couple espressos a day, but it also does like cappuccinos and stuff like that. Then we have a little fridge with some other refreshments, some tea. Actually, fun fact, you'll see on some of the salespeople's offices, this little cactus setup, and that was from the TX launch we did. That was sort of, it had a lot of like Southern foods and some cactus and those types of themes because of the TX. Mainly it was like a play on the word Texas. Also, we have some National Geographics that, believe it or not, these came from my house because I'm a big National Geographic fan, and I decided to bring some in for our Lexus guests recently, and I saw people reading them. So I was like, you know what? I'll leave those here for them. We have a little bit of our display case here with some Lexus boutique items. So these are items that we'll get for our guests, and sometimes have them at delivery as well. You can buy your own and have like a Lexus golf bag if you're a golfer. Come on with me, I'll show you to my office. Beside me is Ralph, one of our financial services managers, and I sit right next to him. So I have a nice view of the showroom and all of the salespeople and what's going on. I want you to keep your eyes up here because my office is messy, and I don't want to say that it's never messy because it's literally always like this, but I've been in this room for like 10 years. Up here, I have a mixture of gifts and trophies that I've gotten over the years. One of my proudest is the Shark Media congratulations for passing 10,000 subscribers. Pretty soon, we'll get to that 100,000 mark, and I'll have an even bigger one. I also have this cool little Ducati from a really good guest and friend of mine, Moran. He 3D printed that. I have this little Piper Cherokee airplane, which is a replica of the airplane that I fly. And this Ducati here that was built for me by one of the managers in the building. It's one of those like Technique Lego, and the pistons move up and down. It actually has gears and stuff like that. And he knows I'm a big Ducati guy, so I have another YouTube channel, believe it or not, that's mostly motorcycle related. So check that out if you haven't already. It's called A Dusty Life, and I go over a lot of Ducati stuff. Then I have this gift, which I always thought was so cute. Previous employee slash friend of mine, Trina, got me this for Christmas one year, I think. It's a little picture of me, my dog, and a Lexus in the background, which I thought was great. My dog, Oliver, that's who's there. And she also got me this when she was working here, which is a really cool photo of my LS 460 in Niagara-on-the-Lake, of course. And I forgot that this is here, but one of our little Lexus bears. And I try to keep something like this in the showroom once in a while, just in case a kid or there's a little family or something like that. If I can give them a gift, I always think that that's really cool. Over from here, we have some more cars, as well as another financial service office. Emily, she's gonna be kind of mad when she gets in because I have some really big boxes in her office right now full of our Christmas bows that we're gonna be using for the Christmas season, and I didn't have anywhere else to store them. From there, we can go over to this office here. Now, this is one that we built sort of, it's like, I call it like an auxiliary office. So this is where my co-manager, Dane, works out of. Again, because we kept growing and growing and growing, we decided we needed another sales manager, and we needed to build him a little station. It was Olivia's before his, and right now it belongs to Dane. So he's like my co-manager, or my co-pilot as I call him. Then over that direction, you sort of transition over to the Toyota dealership. We have some administrative staffs, as well as our boardroom and lunchroom and stuff like that. So I know it's just a quick tour of the dealership. However, pretty soon, not soon enough, but pretty soon, we will have a much bigger and more state-of-the-art building. So there you have it, a little bit of question and answers from both the comments and my Instagram DMs. And for the first time ever, a little tour of where I work and where I film every day. I do get asked all the time, where's all the people? But I usually film at nighttime because I'm so busy during the day. And in future videos, if you liked that part, maybe I'll show a little bit of the shop and upstairs and the rest of the dealership, and maybe I'll even do it during the daytime when people are here. Just let me know in the comments below. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.